Let's talk about equitation. We have a little equitation situation here, learning of this whole concept, learning the ideas of good posture on the back of a horse. So in the idea of just thinking flat work, which is your foundational posture, of course, every discipline, whether you're going to be reining, cutting, jumping, dressage, each riding bucking horses, every time you change positions or change sports, you need a different position. But just on the flat, the very foundational elements of, I was lucky enough that I was a young dressage rider. That's where my background was. I rode English first, and I had some great coaches. So I had a lot of that coaching, and it really does require coaching to develop position and on the back of a horse to be out of a horse's way, to be in balance as a rider. Now, when I taught my kids to ride, I don't want to get them all tied up in their heads about, here, heels down and hands be, tight or whatever, all the different things, elbows at your side. I don't get them tied up with that at first. For me, it's about confidence on the back, that a rider is confident, right? They're not in a little box. They can lean around and move around. So before we get too much into the very details of a lesson, let's just talk about that for a sec. I like lots of bareback riding, lots of things where, we go up hills and your equitation going up a hill, your equitation going down a hill, these different kinds of things. When I put brand new riders on, I'll often walk alongside of them and I kind of give them a push and they have to push themselves back into spot, right? So they get used to, kind of accustomed to coming back into a point of balance. So let's get into those details. What is a point of balance? One of the best things to think about it is when you're and this is a stock saddle, so it's about being really in a center seat. Much like a dressage rider would be, you're thinking shoulders, hips, and heels in line. So a balanced position on the flat for a dressage rider, which is on the flat, or a working cowboy in a stock saddle it's not raining, it's cover the country, you need to be really in line here like this. Where if you're not in line, like let's say you're in a saddle, more like a reining saddle where it puts your seat back and your legs a little more forward like this, you're ready for a stop. And that's fine for that activity, those things you need to do, it changes your equitation. But if you were to ride around all day long, 10 hours around here, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, and you sat with a little rear seat and legs out in front, your lower back will pay the price, and it will on your horse as well, because you don't have that balance underneath you to support you correctly. So balance, I have a friend of mine, Crystal her name is, and she's a student, but also a coach, a wonderful horsewoman. And she has this idea, as she says to her riders, she said, basically, think of a concept that if you were in balance and you're sitting on your horse, and your horse all of a sudden abracadabraed away and they vanished, that when you're sitting there, you would land on your feet and you wouldn't fall backwards and you wouldn't fall forwards. You would just land in balance, right? So you'll see some riders, if the horse abracadabraed away from them, they're leaning forward, they're forward like this and their legs are behind. I'm almost going to tip forward if my horse does something. Other riders, they're riding along like this and they're so far back on the loin of the horse, they're so out of balance, it's hard on the horse's back, it's hard on their back. So when you think about a point of balance, I even started when I first get on the horse. I think to myself, I'm going to get myself so that my legs are, I remember my old dressage course, I used to take my legs, put them underneath me like that, and sit up into the front of the saddle. So I'm not way back in here like this, right? So up here, sitting in the front of the saddle, my inner thigh is carrying weight. I'm not just placid on the horse, and I'm not leaned way up against the back of the saddle, and everything is underneath. So now I have this self-carriage. I can be light in the saddle. You can feel the difference when you do that. So take a side picture of yourself, watch yourself in a video. Now, of course, when the horse goes to walk, the equitation is, walk is a 4-beated gait. You don't have to wrap your head too much on, walk being 4-beated or trot being 2-beated. But what you do want to feel is, you want to feel the movement of the horse, that your body is not going to now stay, I'm going to be here, but you'll see riders, their elbows get straight, it loses the mobility through the back and the shoulders, then here, and then it gets like this. So you could literally just see them. They're trying, am I doing my equitation right? Am I on the horse correctly? And they've got this look. So they ride around, right? And that's because they don't have the fluidity in their movement. So it looks very like, what's up with that, right? Then you watch another rider that's got this going on, And that might be fluid, but it's gonna hurt your back. You get on a horse and ride 10, 12 hours, and even if you just do it every day, you're gonna hurt your horse's back, even if you can put up with it. So this business, another he won't keep going, but another one is people often brace and push on their stirrups all the time. He'll stop if I do that. But so they sit in this position. Sorry, bud. So the position, so you're not here, straight elbows, right? Another bad one is the heels start to rise up on the riders. The horse starts to they get leaning forward, especially when they try to get into the canter. They get this thing going, and now they're really surviving the day. Their hands start going all over the place. So if you're into this point and you're surviving the canter, don't canter. Trot. Get it better at the trot. So now let's reestablish the position here at the trot. We'll just go just for a point of balance. Get myself legs underneath me. My legs underneath me. Get chest right here. My sternum up, so I have that self-carriage. I wanted to take a second to jump in and invite you to our newsletter. It's fun, it's free, we offer horsemanship tips, it's easy to cancel, we don't overwhelm your inbox. I've had thousands of people go through my program, and this is a great way to start learning how to be better with horses from wherever you're at. So join me, go to jonathanfieldhorsemanship.com and join our newsletter, check out and see if there's something there for interest for you. And remember, stay inspired by horses. Legs underneath, up in the front of my saddle. Make sure the pads of my feet are on my stirrups. And I want to talk about that just for a sec. The pads of my feet are on my stirrups, so I'm not all the way in like this, seated into my stirrup all the way. The pads of my feet are on the stirrups, so that way, in my ankle, I have that little hinge down here. Here, if I go all the way, I don't have a hinge. If I come here, I have that hinge. But I also then have the hinge in my knee, right? Then I have the individual mobility in each leg, and then I can have the suppleness through my lower back. Then I can have the upper self-carriage through my chest. And imagine I had a big long hair maybe connected to my sternum here, and I could pick, or my button of my shirt, I could pick myself up from here. So rather than think to myself, and I was told this many times as a rider, but I find this to be a better way, rather than think to myself, sit here and go shoulders back and have my neck still coming forward, I go chest up, and that puts my shoulders back, but still leaves that relaxed. So from my ankles, I do that check. Then I come up to my knees. Everything's underneath. I've got that mobility. I'm up in the front. I'm not like in the front of my saddle, but I'm not sitting way back in behind the movement on the loin of the horse. I'm up in here. I've got that mobility through my leg. I've got that tone in my thigh to keep me up in movement with the horse, keep me lively on the back. My elbows are calm, and there's a little oscillation in the elbow. The thing with my hands is my hands, if you think about your hand, through the wrist this way, so that goes like that. Then you can have that movement here, but you don't break your wrists. So here we go, and let's just find that while we're walking. So I'm walking, you might find you're here, you might find you're up here, you got your stirrups in too deep, your stirrups are in too deep, you end up with a brace in your knee, then you end up hollowing up here. You're going along and all this tension starts to come in. You'll see people start to slap. Why won't it? Well, first get your pads, your feet in the stirrups. Get that oscillation happening in your ankles, that movement in there. Get your knees picking up if you have to. Find that movement. Don't worry to exaggerate that movement. Find that movement, pick yourself up in the saddle. Then finally we get up to the elbows, to the shoulders, chest up. And then I'm gonna move my hands a little bit right here at the trot. So if I can just get myself in a little bit of time, just a bit, to get that feel of my hands can move, where it's not like here and a brace in the elbow. You'll see that often, right? So get that. Now, looking where I'm going, not looking where he can't catch up. I'm looking at a spot that's just ahead of him here, but I'm not looking over there because he can't catch up to that. So when I come across here and look this way, I just look a little ahead, right? Looking where I'm going, keeping my head up, sometimes I'll look down to check, but I don't let that take my posture with it. Look ahead, reset my leg underneath, right? And just from a sitting trot point of view, of course we could go rising trot, canter, but I just want to talk in this lesson basic balance. Then do more movement, do less move. You stick this, and then find yourself in balance with just the right amount of movement and just practice, and he'll feel that and go, oh, that's way better, so that there's no extra work happening in the leg. If the horse is dull to you, you're gonna have to get a crop to speed them up. Otherwise, if you're working in your leg, that compromises, come on, it compromises your equitation if that happens, right? If the horse is ahead of you, you gotta slow them down, release, slow them down, release, you know, to go through the programs of how to slow them down. But for this pointed lesson, I go a check, bottom, ankles, knee, thigh, lower back, chest up, elbows hanging at my sides, right? My hands don't come behind my pommel or my saddle horn. See how that changes the back? You'll feel that even in the chair versus your elbows here. Now, the height of my hands is important. Sometimes, you know, you're doing different things. Of course, you're moving your hands, but the height of your hands is in a line with your elbow coming through here to the horse's mouth, and that line. So people will break that line. They ride here, they ride here, they're riding up here, right? So your hands in the end, you want them to be as wide as the horse's mouth, right here, in a line, comes through there. So that's the line, that's where you want to get steadied. I love the exercises we used to do, you know, the pony club type exercises and the 4-H lessons where, you know, we'd have to hold a spoon and an egg or a cup of water. And what valuable, fun equitation lessons that you're learning, you know, reach back and touch here, you know, reach up and touch here. Hey, who can stand in the saddle? These are important things, guys. Lean over a little, you know, you're on a safe horse to learn all this. Can you set your reins down? Can you pick them up? Right? Learn your equitation on a horse, even if it's on a lunge line. And that's how I taught my kids. Put them on a lunge line, on a safe long line, you know, on a safe horse, obviously, and let them play around. Do the egg thing, do the cup of water thing, now can you lean over? And then I give them a push and, you know, build that, the proprioception, all those awarenesses, and then you do your checks and you get a little more formalized and a little more understanding. And then when you hear your masters talk about seat, leg, balance, when you turn, all these things that are specific to different yields, then you don't allow your mind to get too tied up if you can. The most important thing I want to say after all of this is that breathing. And that breathing, I think that breathing the life in and just letting myself settle down deep into the horse as I go. And you'll often hear me as I'm warming a horse up, and you know, sometimes you just hear the breath. The breath is the most important thing. After all that balance is just sorted out, focus on the breathing, focus on each part of your body, just kind of getting in time, and then mentally let that go. That lesson of mentally letting it go, finding the breath, it allows you to find timing with the horse versus being literally tied up in knots in your head. Am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? And then the tension comes in and the tension just transmits right through the horse.